Let's face it, life isn't easy. If you're stuck in a bad relationship, betrayed or afraid of tomorrow, financially insecure, or desperate for a breakthrough, you've come to the right place. Dr. Carmen Harra is a renowned psychologist, intuitive, relationship expert, and best-selling author, and she's here to give you the miracle guidance you need. Her new call-in show, Miracle Guidance for Everyday Life, offers profound wisdom, practical advice, daily exercises, and empowering predictions, all for you. Dr. Harra's show aims to eliminate everyday problems, big and small, with topics like healing your relationships, reclaiming your power, achieving better health, dealing with loss, and so much more. Regain the joy, stability, and fulfillment you deserve to feel. Tune in to Miracle Guidance for Everyday Life with host Dr. Carmen Harra, live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, and find the answers you've been looking for.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Miracle Guidance. I'm your host, Dr. Carmen Harra. So excited to be with you tonight. If I've ever been excited to be with you, it's tonight, because I have such a phenomenal guest with me, a wonderful friend of mine, a colleague from Hay House, and he is my special guest tonight. But before I introduce him to you, let me make a remark. Many of us were taught to believe in God. But what exactly does that mean? Who and what is God, and what role does the universal energy and universal force play in the greater scheme of things? Now, today's reliance on science has forced most people to disregard the idea of faith and religion, especially if you look at the young generation. But there comes a point in each of our lives when we must reevaluate our relationship with the divine and start becoming more acquainted with God in personal and powerful ways. How can we do this, and how will it improve our state of fulfillment and our state of mind, of peace of mind? So for that reason, I said I have the most amazing guest that I'm super excited. He's no one else other than Dr. Eldon Taylor. And he's a New York Times best-selling author, many books, and the subject of his books range from exposing the darker side of mind, programming and brainwashing, to the spiritual search for life's meaning. And what's more powerful in everybody's life than this topic? So in addition to Dr. Eldon being an amazing author, and he created something that I think is absolutely extraordinary. He also patented his inner talk subliminal technology. Now, I'll explain you a little bit as much as I know how to explain it. Inner talk is the only such technology on the market that has been researched by numerous independent universities and institutions and been demonstrated efficient as priming self-talk. Now, self-talk or inner talk is a mirror on your beliefs, which in turn play a vital role in determining whether you will succeed in life or you will fail. So this holds true regardless of the domain being looked at, from relationship to business, from education to sport to performances. When your self-talk changes, so will the life that you experience. This is such a powerful idea and such an amazing concept. And also want to tell you about Dr. Eldon Taylor. He's the host of the very popular radio show called Provocative Enlightenment. It's an exciting show with such a unique presentation because it offers, an approach to all the questions that we're all interested in, like question that we have: who am I? What does this all mean? How do I minimize my life experience? How do I maximize my life experience? So he covers subjects that are relevant to all of us, So I want to tell you that he has amazing guests, ranging from famous actors like Lindsay Wagner to Linda Evans to Congressman Tim Ryan, and even the famous and wonderful medium James Van Praagh, also from Hay House. So I'm so excited to tell you that he also has a phenomenal new book that I want you guys to get, called Questioning Spirituality, which is all about rationality or belief in a higher power. So great topic, something that you all are interested in, because questioning spirituality is not only about providing and proving or disapproving the presence of divine power. It doesn't try to prove or disapprove but it's about the rationality of believing that such a thing actually really exists. So the beauty of this book is that it delivers opening doors to many things that were kept like closed, tightened, unrevealed, forbidden. So using the foundation of science and philosophy, Dr. Eldon Taylor will actually show you tonight, not only that it is rational to believe in God and a higher power, but it's probably one of the best ideas, the smartest idea. So with this being said, I welcome my wonderful friend, Dr. Eldon Taylor. Dr. Taylor, I'm so grateful for having you on my show. And I know a lot of people are listening, and they're all excited to listen to you and to have you speak about this amazing topic. Thank you for doing this.
Oh, it is indeed my pleasure. I'm thrilled to be here. But after that introduction, I'm afraid I'm overwhelmed and thinking, well, it'll only go downhill from here.
No.
That build-up's pretty incredible. But I'm also very, very grateful. Thank you.
Oh, I am grateful to you. I know you're so modest and you're so humble, and that's so beautiful about you. Your amazing qualities and your extraordinary knowledge. I know you for so many, many, many years. I applaud you. I've read your books. I'm your fan. So I'm going to start by asking you, Dr. Taylor, why do you believe there's so many people, and we look at the young generation, they're not interested so much in the divine. They have a problem with their belief in a higher power. So in other words, believing this higher power becomes problematic, especially for the young generation. My question is why? Why do you think this is going on right now?
Well, I'm going to share a story with you, and it'll lead right into that.
Right.
When I was a young man,
right.
I had lots of questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I was raised in a religious family, and
right.
I did all the things you're supposed to do to demonstrate that religiosity.
Right, exactly.
But including attend seminary. But I would take my questions, and they were reasonable questions, the kinds of questions that we all have when we read the Bible, or and I was raised Christian, or we just think about the nature of God. Aristotle thought of the divine as the unmoved mover. The problem with a lot of religiosity is that we try to define things, and whenever you define something, you also exclude something else. So if you say, my desk is rectangular, that presupposes it's not also round. So if you say God is all-powerful, then I might ask you, well, does that mean he can build a rock so large it can't lift it? We get tied up in these things. Well, as young people, you have these questions, and you take the questions to your church leaders, and invariably, sooner or later, you're given, refrain from the mysteries, or the Martin Luther quote that, for all intent and purposes, reason is antithesis to faith. It should be avoided at all costs. It will undermine your belief, which, is a problem. It was a problem for me, enough of a problem that I was, for all intent and purposes, essentially excommunicated. I was told not to come back to seminary, all right? Well, I've got two sons, and they're wonderful young men, and they're bright young men, and they went off to an Ivy public university, and they're both engineers and math majors, and they did a lot of science, and they came back atheists. Our educational system has leaned towards secularism as a matter of the separation of church and state.
Right.
So with this secular emphasis, the young people today get more and more of what's often called the Santa Claus analogy.
Right.
You know, when you're young and you're told Santa Claus is coming and he's going to slide down the chimney and he's going to deliver these packages, you don't stop to think about how's a guy that big get down the chimney, and how does he deliver, presents that are way too big to fit in there.
Right.
But you get to an age, you've gone off to school, and the data shows that college-educated young people, millennial and Gen Z particularly, are more and more drifting away from, the data is, that the fact is there are twice as many today who claim to be atheists than there was just 20 years ago. So, my two sons, they come home atheists. And now, I've been through this myself, and when I start talking to them, the points are the same kinds of points, that I had when a young man. These definitions are crazy. The Bible disagrees with science. 7,000-year-old Earth, that's nonsense. You hear, Christians are hypocrites. I believe science refutes the Bible. I don't believe in fairy tales. There are too many injustices in the history of Christianity. I had a bad experience, maybe. These are the kinds of things you hear from young people as to why they disengage with Christianity and with the Muslim faith. You also get this LGBTQ community rights issue, because traditionally religion has a problem with these things. And so what happens is we turn away, our young people turn away from religion as in Freud's word, as a sugar-coated neurotic crutch. Or as John Wisdom said, doesn't it feel good? It's kind of like having daddy at the end of the hall when you're a child and you have a nightmare. But you're grown up now, aren't you? And that's why they've moved away. But in the process of moving away, more than just the distrust of authority has happened. They find there's a lack of direction, a lack of meaning, a lack of what does it matter? Is it all just, I chase the dollar to the end of my life. I work for somebody else. The big corporations make all the money. I'm not empowered. I'm just a slave. These are the things we hear from young people when we talk to them. But they're also, as I started to say, absent direction. The meaning seems to have diminished. And so we see increases in divorce. In fact, a study that looked at classroom prayer, which was removed in 1962, it's documented that we have had a six-fold increase in violent crime. Divorce rates have tripled. Births to single mothers have increased five-fold. The teenage suicide rate has tripled. Even SAT scores have dropped. It's and most of this, I believe, is the result of the lack of a guiding principle, a way to connect with the world with what, has some value beyond the scope of myself, a bigger meaning, something more important than me, and a path. I'm not just a meat machine, part of the environmental evolutionary process that has delivered me here. And, as the Bible says, from dust thou art, to dust returneth. I take that literally. This is my life. There is no afterlife, and therefore, a lot of the values we might impose on ourselves are seriously mitigated. So I set about to write this book, not to prove a God. As Carl Sagan once so eloquently said, the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence, but instead to show anyone and everyone that, contrary to what so many people in universities, particularly, those siloists who are the pundits of atheism, are continually delivering to young people, the notion that religion, spirituality, and afterlife is irrational. You are being irrational to believe these things. These are Santa Claus stories. They make no sense at all. Educated people do not accept them, etc. Now, my own work, as you know, Carmen, and I've interviewed some of the brightest people on this planet.
Exactly.
And I very often have PhDs, MDs, who you can call closet atheists, or not atheists, closet believers.
Right.
But because of their profession, they're in a university, interested in tenor or with their associations. They're not public about their beliefs in an afterlife. So to me, this book was all about, let's reach those people who have been convinced that it's irrational to believe in an afterlife, a higher power, a creator, an unmoved mover, a God, whatever title you want to put to it. Let's demonstrate using science and logic that that's false to fact.
So how does science come into conflict with religion and spirituality?
How does science, I'm sorry, I missed part of that.
So how does science come into conflict with spirituality or with religion?
Well,
how does that happen?
The first place that we see it come into conflict is, of course, when people take the Bible literally.
Right.
If I'm going to look at the creation story and I'm going to say that the Earth is only 7,000 years old, I'm clearly going to run into a problem. Hard science dates the Earth much, much older. It dates human beings much older than 7,000 years, to say nothing of the first life that crawled out on the planet. So I'm either going to reject science or I'm going to have to reject the religious belief. Now, if I don't reject the science, then I'm going to have to reject their interpretation of the religious data. Right. And some will do that. They'll look at the Earth and they'll say, well, a day unto the Lord is millennia. A day unto man is a millennia unto God. So we don't, or they'll say something like, the Bible is a metaphor and should not be taken literally. The point is, the first place we come into conflict with science is when we literally interpret our scripture. If we, whatever that scripture might be, the Gita, the Bible, the Quran, etc. Okay, I don't want to slight anybody, but whatever that scripture might be, if we take it literally as historical, the Bible, for example, says that Moses was transfigured. Well, that's a pretty literal statement. Okay, can't prove it and can't disprove it. But most of what's in the Bible, the mystics believe to be metaphor, teaching stories. so we look at a teaching story differently. Let's take a teaching story from the Vedas.
Right.
When Arjuna is confronted with a conflict between his duty and his family, he goes to Krishna.
Right.
They're about to wage war, and the war is against members of his family and many of his friends who are rebelling against the authority for which Arjuna is a general. So he's placed in this situation where he goes to Krishna, and what am I supposed to do? My duty is this, but these are my family and my friends. Now, the moral of the story is all about duty. It's not about, let's go kill friends. It's not about a literal war. And so much of what's in the Bible, like the story of Job, is a metaphor that speaks to abandoning faith. These are teaching stories, and if taken that way, well, then the conflict is minimized. But the first place that we have the conflict is right there, when religion argues for a literal interpretation. The second place is when religion instructs everybody to deny reason. And I'm going to go back to Martin Luther's statement. I mean, that's 16th century, but it's when a person is told, well, you just have to have faith. You're just going to have to refrain from the mysteries, and that's a mystery. Science has a big problem with that. It's not that we're supposed to understand the unmoved mover. In fact, I think, as Plotinus said, if we were to have that immersion moment, one with the one, we would come back, it would be ineffable. We simply would not have the linguistic skills or ability to describe something that is outside of description power. And I think, in our efforts, and I mean historically, in the effort of religion to grow up from animism, what it's done is reduce a lot of stories to a childlike place, to where, tell me what God's like. Is he like a king on a throne? And waiting for us, and will he be judging us, and is there a literal hell? I mean, is Dante correct? We've done a whole lot of that kind of definitional stuff, and in that process we deny or find ourselves in a place where we have to deny reason because it's self-contradictory.
Right.
You understand what I'm... So the second place is one religion says, throw reason away. Just kind of believe us. The third place is in an area where you start looking at the potential of determinism. God is all good, but there's evil in the world. We have free will. But that's why there's evil in the world. Religion tends to want to say God gave us free will, and we're the source of the evil. But science is beginning to show us that large part of what we think free will is an illusion. In fact, an MRI technician watching the brain make decisions live time can, in about 70% of the instances, know what you're going to decide up to 7 seconds before you make that decision. So, well, okay, wait a minute. Now, where's the free will then? Free will may be our ability to step beyond the automatic processes of how consciousness works. The so-called shortcuts, the heuristics, the programming, etc. We have to get beyond that. That's my own opinion, but there are many of the best thinkers on the planet that will flatly say free will is an illusion, and they're in universities. Well, if free will's an illusion, then the problem of evil starts to really look directly at the so-called creator. But now science will also talk about consciousness as an emergent property. An emergent property, meaning, that just as properties emerge in possibility from anything that we build, a car, many of the characteristics of an automobile, the parts, etc., are not designed to do some things that are done with them. Well, those things that it can do that they weren't designed for, that's an emergent property. So we have this mass, this 3-pound mass of brain matter with all these neurons and electrical activity and synapses and bathing electrochemical processes and we're feeling love because of oxytocin, and we're feeling fear because of adrenaline, and we have this whole explanation that science sometimes wants to put on us, particular reductionistic secularism. And so emergent properties explain consciousness, and we don't need any other understanding. In fact, there's a lot of people right now looking at artificial intelligence and some of the emergent properties. Only the machine programmers call it emergent behavior. Well, it's it depends on if you're a mathematician and you know anything about emergence theory. If I think of emergent property simply, well, then I can say the brain is emergent property, although the higher level of emergent property means that the sum is greater than the whole. Meaning, greater than the parts. There we go. Okay, so mathematicians largely argue that that's not possible, but there's a whole camp that believes that it is. Bottom line, there's an argument that we don't need a creator in order to understand consciousness. Okay? And then there are the genetic studies. We see criminality is inheritable. We see certain characteristics, for all intent and purposes, from eye color to memories, certain memories that are passed generationally. Okay? So when we look at identical twin studies, we see instances where two twins separated at birth, one raised in Florida, another raised in California, when brought together in their 30s. They both have blue Fords. They both married women by the name of Mary. They both are wearing, navy blue suits. They both have the same kind of job. It's right on down. There is so much evidence to indicate that the genetics in these two twins was so powerful that it overrode the nurture part of their background to a great deal. So determinism begins to become a problem then too. These are just some of the things, the places where science meets spirituality or religion really and conflicts with it. Young people take this on, they look at the things that we have discussed earlier, and they walk away atheistic. But at the same time, they walk away empty. I believe, for what it's worth, that what happens is there's a conflation of religious dogma with spirituality. I hesitated. I said spirituality a minute ago, and then I tucked it over to religion, because I think by conflating spirituality with a religion, we suddenly run into dogma.
Right.
All religions have their dogma. There's
Right.
a difference between having a spiritual experience, sensing awe such that you think of a creator, or as when you behold the Grand Canyon for the first time. That spiritual sense of connectedness, that
Right.
sense of their life extends beyond this corporal body. That sense of connectedness, that's spirituality.
Right.
You can be a very spiritual person and belong to a religion. I'm not saying that that's not the instance. But what I am saying is, when you pin the atheist down, and I've had the good fortune to go right at some of them, they'll come off of atheism real quick. Michael Shermer, said to me, no, I'm not atheist, I'm an agnostic. And yet I've heard him dozens of times, in dozens of interviews, call himself an atheist. Well, here's the thing. An atheist says there is no such God with an absolute certainty, but he can't prove it. A theist says there is a God with an absolute certainty, but they can't prove it.
True.
So if you're an atheist and you want to argue rationally, you're on the same irrational grounds that you want to attack. So that you're going to back up real quick if you're pretty smart, and Shermer is definitely that, and you're going to take on the role of agnosticism. I'm an agnostic. Okay, now, when you push it a little further, you find that, well, there's a great deal of value to spiritual practices. The late Christopher Hitchens was quick to point out that spiritual practices are very beneficial. They can be the rituals, those holidays, the attendance in the church, the practices of lighting candles, burning incense, meditating. Right. All of these practices have great benefit, and we can talk about that in a bit. But what they'll want to do is separate the spiritual practices from religion or God itself. Okay, that's why I say they conflate the dogma with spirituality. The problem with this is, kind of goes this way. Research shows us that you're in pain, and a loved one, you're in the hospital laying in a bed, and a loved one sits down and puts your hand between their two. The pain minimizes. There's great comfort to holding the hand of that loved one. Great comfort. And you don't have to be in pain. At the end of the day, you might sit down in front of the television to watch something with your wife or your husband right next to you, and you hold hands. There's great comfort. There's a sense of connection, this sense of support, this an unseen fabric that ties you together. Okay?
Right.
All right.
True.
When you, as say an agnostic say, which they do, I can use these spiritual practices and get the same benefit, they're missing something really important. And that's it. When I meditate, you meditate, we're taking a hold of the hand of something greater than us. We're turning ourselves over. We're opening up to a higher power. We are holding hands. We are not alone. We sense and feel that we're not alone. We're getting great support from this higher power, this unmoved mover, that whole sense of connectedness. It's not unlike holding hands with our spouse.
Right.
If I'm an agnostic and I decide I'm going to sit down in a chair and I'm going to meditate, I'm going to what? Meditate on myself?
Right.
What? I'm going to meditate on the class that I'm about to give in the university? I'm going to meditate on that collector car I have and what colors I may want to paint it? You see the difference?
Right.
As the agnostic, you're alone.
Right.
As the theist, you're connecting. And it's the same as holding the hand of a loved one. You're not alone.
True.
So
Yeah.
you talk
So
to
true.
hospice people, you talk to physicians, they'll all tell you that that sense of connectedness is the most important pain killer that a patient can have, that it further assists them in passing with ease. And that, in and of itself, tells us there's a good deal of difference between an agnostic lighting candles, burning incense, meditating, and a spiritual
Right.
person doing the same thing. So, when you're all said and done, in my view, you know, what you want to do then is you want to start looking at, well, if science has said that they have a superior position, what is that superior position? And how does it hold up? Well, right away, in just what we've talked about, you can see that the superior position is not to spirituality, not to arguments of the afterlife, not to the potential reality of special events, something I call, you know, everything from noetics and paragnosis to, you know, the research of people like Gary Schwartz with mediums or Dean Radin with psychic abilities, psychokinesis, clairvoyance, etc. They're not going after that. What they're going after is dogma. And it's the dogma that's been conflated. Well, if we can dismiss that, and just for the moment then say, what we're asking is it irrational to believe in a higher power?
Right.
All right. It may be irrational to believe in dogma. I'm not going to argue about that.
Right.
But there's a couple of forms of reason in formal reasoning. One of them is theoretical. Theoretical is, you know, that form of reasoning is going to be used mathematically to plan a trip to the moon.
Right.
Thought experiments and theoretical reasoning are going to look at, you know, logical outcomes that are all about typically a variety of things from biology to cosmology, okay? But there's also a form of formal reasoning known as practical reasoning.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what is practical reasoning? Well, when we talk about things that we can't prove, we can't see, we can't touch, we can't taste,
Exactly.
theoretical
Right.
reasoning has little to do with our subjective experiences. But practical reasoning has a whole lot. So I get up in the morning and I don't feel myself. I wonder if I should go to the doctor. It isn't theoretical reasoning that I'm going to use to make that decision. Should I? Shouldn't I? That's the question. Theoretical reasoning, practical reasoning, they're entirely different by way of what we're seeking to get.
Right.
I mean, philosophically speaking, practical reason is the use of reason to decide how to act. And it contrasts with theoretical reasoning, often thought of as speculative reasoning, on the basis that that form of reasoning is designed to decide what to follow. Practical reasoning then decides how the world should be and what individuals should do, and theoretical reasoning tries to assess why things are. Okay?
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to decide to go to the doctor. I'm going to use practical reasoning. If I, don't go, I might get sick. If I do go, well, I might be a hypochondriac. Maybe there's nothing wrong. It's going to, insurance company, or I'm going to pay for it. I'm going to go through this kind of a decision. Okay?
Right. Yeah.
I use practical reasoning when I want to optimize my life, or I shouldn't I?
Yes.
So if I'm going to optimize my life, how am I going to do that? I mean, I'm going to choose advantages. I would think I'm going to be very aware that, some things are poisonous and I shouldn't eat them. And I'm going to be very aware that some snakes are venomous and I should stay away from them. And I'm going to be, it's okay. I am going to make decisions, hopefully, that will lead to optimizing my health and wellness and longevity.
Exactly.
And when we look at spirituality through the lens of practical reasoning, what we find are the advantages to believing.
Right.
Well, what are some of those advantages? Well, what happens when a spiritual person decides that they're going to invest their life in believing in a higher power? As the research shows, they live longer and healthier lives.
Exactly.
Research shows that spiritual people are more likely to be faithful to their mates and therefore enjoy lasting relationships.
True.
Research shows that spirituality improves learning, economic well-being, self-control, self-esteem, and empathy. And, if you want some truly fun but interesting scientific findings regarding spirituality, studies also, on the lighter side, show us it helps us resist junk food, puts a smile on our face, it releases endorphins, soothes anxiety, protects against depression, motivates, regular checkups and therefore better health care, and lowers blood pressure. So the bottom line is, if I use practical reasoning, well, then I'm most certainly going to choose a spiritual life. That tops what I get out of atheism or agnosticism, and neither of those have disproved any reason for me to be spiritual. Right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, then if I stop and say, well, is there anything else, any other reason? I mean, I want to live a good life, but should I be spiritual just because I'm going to live a little longer? I mean, is that enough reason to believe that there's a higher power? Well, maybe it's not. For some of us, we may want to look a little further. And like yourself, I've been one of those people, I had to do the hard research. What is the evidence to all this stuff about reincarnation? I used to have the opinion, because I could see a client, And I would use regression hypnosis. And in using regression hypnosis, they might identify a pain as where they got stabbed in a prior life. Well, it's okay with me. I didn't necessarily believe that they were stabbed in a prior life, but as long as I could use that to relieve their pain, that's what mattered.
That's what
mattered. But as I
exactly.
did more research, say again, I'm sorry, Carmen.
No, you're absolutely right. I was just listening to everything you say. I cannot agree with you more in everything you say. And I don't know if you want to take a call, but I would love to sort of challenge you a little bit with somebody who believes in spirituality, and her name is Leilani. Hi, Leilani, are you with us?
Hi, hello.
Very
hello,
spiritual
Carmen.
lady.
Hello.
So, hi, my love. So, you're in touch with Dr. Eldon Taylor, and if you have any questions to the topic, I know you love this kind of topic, feel free to ask.
I do, and Doctor, you're not going to believe this. I was pretty much extricated from my spiritual community today. I was studying at their university, and I was starting to ask questions, and I was very outspoken, and they told me I can no longer go on in the program. So my heart is broken open today. I don't know if I will return to this spiritual community. I feel like there's maybe 5 or 6 women that threw me under the bus, and I'm just devastated. So
I'm so sorry to hear that.
How synchronicity is this to have this show today? Thank you so much.
It's indeed my pleasure, and again, I'm really sorry to hear that. But it's not uncommon. People who are willing to question, I'm going to digress if I can here for a second. I know I can be long-winded, Carmen, so shut me up anytime. But Clifton Fadiman once said, and God plagued man with the ability to think. Okay, now wait a minute. I read that, and I thought, well, supposedly we're in the image of the Creator. If I look around in the natural world, I realize I can't run as fast as a cheetah, and I can't swing through the trees like these damn monkeys. And and when I evaluate nature, I discover that there's one faculty that we excel at. And that's our ability to think, reason. Well, maybe it's a plague, and maybe it's a blessing. I mean, most things are, the truly powerful things are like the surgeon's scalpel. They can be used for good, they can be used for bad. I can use reason to pervert behavior, but I can also use reason to really look into who I am, why I'm here, what the meaning of life might be about. And when you start doing that, I think you're using the gift, the thing that gives you the ability to even recognize there may be a spiritual side to life. I don't think my dog, as much as I love her, contemplates the nature of being, let alone the nature of what happens when I die. And I'm certain she's not having discussions with her litter mate regarding whether or not there's a creator. So if it's a plague, if because we ask these questions, we're not spiritual, I suggest to you that it's the people subscribing blindly to this material that is obviously dogma, or they wouldn't be running away from it trying to defend it. And so I'm sorry for you, and on the other hand, you should feel liberated. I do. I was kicked out. I was excommunicated, and it led to a deeper level of questioning. It took me many years to get where I am, but It was the questioning that convinced me there is an afterlife. It was the hard research that convinced me there are principles that are greater than ourselves, that are the reason we're here, that guide us. There is a hand of unconditional love that's there supporting me in some invisible, intangible, and at the same time, subjectively, emotively touchable sense.
Right.
Does
Now,
that help
Dr.
at all?
Eldon Taylor, yeah, that's so remarkably said. And I want to ask you a little bit about the book because I want everybody to get your latest book, Questioning Spirituality, and tell us where people can find the book and describe the book a little bit for everybody. And I know you guys are listening. Please get this amazing book, and you are listening to the amazing voice of Dr. Eldon Taylor, who's just a pioneer in discovering, the power of the mind and bridge, consciousness with religion, with spirituality. I mean, nobody has done this kind of a profound work, and I am so honored to have Dr. Taylor with me tonight. But get the book, Questioning Spirituality. And Dr. Taylor, tell us a little bit about the book and where can people find it?
Well, the book is in pre-release, and thanks to support of many people, especially including yourself, Carmen, I was advised by the publisher that they expect the book to be sold out within a day or two of its release.
Absolutely,
They're short copies right now. The pre-sale has been really fantastic. You can order it online, pre-order it. It releases on April 1. But you can pre-order it now while there is still stock, and you'll get it, a couple of days after April 1st. Amazon is telling me that if I order it, I'll have it by April 3rd, and I know that they'll have it on April 1. So, but all of them, Books A Million, Barnes & Noble, Amazon.
Yes.
It will be in all the bookstores sometime after April 1st, I guess, and I'm not sure when.
But
I love great sales in the pre-sale, but
Right.
And
So
Carmen, I've got to thank you. It's been a pleasure to be with you again. And
my God,
I'm sorry I dominated the conversation. I love to just talk with you.
This is your show, and this is all about your principles. And will you tell our people if they want to work with you directly, is that still possible? If people need your guidance, your help, do you still offer one-on-one? I don't know that for sure.
I don't do the one-on-ones anymore. No, I kind of have myself back down, but
no, I don't blame you. I know
that doesn't mean that you're not welcome to write me. It doesn't mean that I don't respond, and I love your emails, and you can write me at Eldon, ELDON, at eldontaylor.com. Reach me that way, and I'm happy. It may take me a few days to get back to you. I get a lot of email, but I promise I do get back. And it's me. I don't hand it off to somebody else to do.
Can people still listen to your radio show?
Right now, the radio show is on sabbatical. I've got another book coming right behind, Questioning Spirituality, and we are wrapping that one up. So I'm kind of over my head. You should see my desk.
I bet.
I'm a clean, neat, tidy guy, but my desk is just unbelievable.
Trying to do everything. That's incredible. But, I am so thrilled. I'm so honored. And I said before, I'm repeating myself because it's just such a pleasure, to listen to you, to honor your work for so many years. And you guys listening, please get this phenomenal book if you have a chance to get it, because if it's already sold out, it probably has to go in reprint. Questioning Spirituality. What an amazing topic. the number one probably topic that everybody should consider nowadays. And if you want to reach Dr. Eldon Taylor, he gave you all the details. Well, to get a hold of him, read the book and comment on it, because I know you will be amazed at everything that this book is outlining and suggesting, and it helps you understand fundamental laws of life. And nobody did it better than Dr. Eldon Taylor. And is there anything you wanna leave the audience at the end of the show? Anything else you want to tell us?
Well, I would just close with this, Carmen. We covered very little of what's in the book.
I know.
I want everyone to understand there is nothing irrational about believing in a higher power. I'll stand toe-to-toe with anyone you want. We'll go down science. We'll go down logic. You are in a better position as a believer than you would be as a non-believer rationally.
So that is, summing up everything. Thank you, Dr. Eldon Taylor. It was such a pleasure, such an honor. For everybody listening, I'm Dr. Carmen Harra. I'll be with you next week. And much gratitude to the owner and Wally Dr.